what data can go through into what Copilot is. So Copilot is grabbing this data from your internal application. Where is it grabbing it from? Is that authorized to have that grab it from? There was a client of ours that we had it when we were building through Copilot. It was so simple. It was pulling in leadership documentation that was not supposed to be there. It was a middle manager. Why is he able to see these things? And you go to the SharePoint, which is the information repository. You did not have the basic setups into what groups can access that.
As AI is evolving, and as you know, it's going to get way more smarter, it's going to do more things. What is your thoughts about the future of AI?
It's going to be a bit of both. There are going to be some pitfalls and so forth else to showcase it, and there's going to be laws in place because we don't how vital data is, and as AI continues to go more involved in, larger companies are getting more access into our public data, whether it's social media, whether it's our phones.
Thanks for tuning in to Privion AI Spotlight. I started this show because AI is changing everything, and most people have no idea how fast. So each week I'm sitting down with real operators, founders, educators, and people inside of the system AI is already touching. No hype, just real conversation about what's actually happening behind the scenes. So if you want to stay ahead of what's coming, tap subscribe. Now let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome back, everyone, to Privion AI Spotlight. Today, I'm sitting with Solomon Williams, CEO and founder of Solonox. So, Solomon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate you, Giovanni, for bringing me on. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're excited to learn more about what you do, about your background, and how you got into this space. So let's start with that.
Yeah, so I started more on cloud engineering for Azure, Microsoft products, and so forth. Transitioned more. Most of my background has been into architecture and so forth. So been doing that on consulting side for a number of years, about like almost 10. So, right now with Solonox, we're more of a professional services firm. So focus more on mid-market or growing companies, and where we're looking to help with the digital transformation of those companies. So whether it's migrating over to the cloud, modernizing your legacy applications, utilizing AI. A big thing that we've seen here is utilizing Microsoft Copilot with your M365 tenant. How do you integrate those connections into your CRMs like Dynamics or whether it's Salesforce? So we're seeing that and building that foundation to make sure organizations are doing it the right way and securely for that.
So you said digital transformation, which is a word I really like. So when it comes to showing these companies about taking these steps for that digital transformation, what are some challenges that you see in the field?
There's a couple, but normally what we've seen here is in terms of just there's a lot of technical debt. And what I mean by that is there's an abundance of clouded data of what they have and what they're looking to be able to solutionize, whether that is, a new application or a new feature that they're really trying to release. And we're seeing a lot of takes of AI being a lot of hype in AI. How do we automate this? How do we bring this in? And you're spending a lot of money in terms of the cloud and for this cases, because everything is being run on these large cloud organizations. So where we come in on the digital transformation side is more on helping to walk you through those steps of that. So let's say, for example, you're on AWS or you're on Google's platform and you're mostly working within like what we call ClickOps. How do you have it to where it's automated, templated effectively? So we go through that steps of those cases. So with that digital transformation, it can get technical, but you really start with the why and understanding what's the problem that you're seeing on the application or whatever the business objective is that you're trying to do. And then from there, what are the pain points? And then we uncover little by little through the discovery, through the assessment of your environment, what you're working, what's working, what's not working. And then we build that, foundationally and step by step by step. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so through your assessment, what has been a common theme or like a low-hanging fruit type of application that you have seen?
In terms of just the problems or just solutions that folks can do for
Let's say problems, and then let's start with problems and then solution.
Yeah, sure. So a big thing that we're seeing with FinOps, financial operations with the cloud is in terms of your cloud your cloud bill is way too high. Like you have a lot of virtual machines or your storage accounts are very expensive. So the key point people are not taking away. That's the problem. We're seeing in Q2, Q3, the CFO is saying, "Hey, we need to drop this bill down. What can we do?" So easy enough as you think it'd be very. You think you'd see a lot of it in the industry, but folks are not properly tagging those environments. Is it in dev? Is it in QA? Or is it in production? They go from there. Then you take a little step, low hanging fruit. Okay, from the non-production side, are these servers need to stay on over the weekend? Do you
Mhm.
have auto shutdowns for that? Okay, so we put that into it. Now you look into certain storage disks. Do you need to have all of them on premium? Is there a why to why that needs to be premium? Does the application need to have premium storage of it? No. Okay, let's figure this things out. So it's little bits of that where companies can really sit down and really understand their infrastructure team. Why is it that we need to do? Whether it worked in the past or if we need to modernize and we need to reassess this. That's where we come into it, because I get it with company. You go through next iterations, new initiatives from the top come down. So you look to that and you want to continuously scale, bit by bit, quarter by quarter, to make sure that you're running lean and efficient.
Mhm. I feel like data control and privacy has been one of the major talks when it comes to AI. Can you walk us through, in very simple terms, the cloud space, the local servers, deployments? Why is it important, and how do you make sure that when your clients are working with you, they feel secure that everything's under control?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Giovanni. So in terms of that, you really look at, let's say, for example, you're utilizing Copilot for these cases of prompt injections and you're worried about it. You really start at the high level of, what are you looking to do? What is your application really doing? So we start very high level and just saying, is this application within that's in your organization, is it internet facing? Is it public facing to the internet? Yes, no. Is it internal? Okay, yes. If it is public facing, do you have a proper firewall in place? What are your guardrails? What is your policies in your organization saying? Hey, in the cloud, we have different regions, and I'm making this very general, making very high level, but there's East US and there's the West Coast. So if all of your engineers are on the East Coast and your business users, there doesn't need to be a reason for it to go to the West Coast. So you put that out, you put that in the policy saying, no case of it, only East Coast one can get access to this. Then you start at that level. Then you go a level higher with IP addresses, with firewalls. Who can access us? So maybe you have a trusted user up in New York, in your baseline where your organization is in Florida. So you have that IP address. We know that's in. So you grab that IP address, that CIDR range that we call it, and add that into your firewall to say, okay, this is a whitelist. You're clear to come in. So those are steps of that, and then again, you add into the Copilot side of it. In terms of it, is just what data can go through into what Copilot is. So Copilot is grabbing this data from your internal applications. Where is it grabbing it from? Is that authorized to have that grab it from? There was a client of ours that we had it when we were building through Copilot. It was so simple of when you inject, because Copilot is pulling in your company's information, it was pulling in leadership documentation that was not supposed to be there. It was a middle manager, and we're like, okay, well, why is he able to see these things? And you go to the SharePoint, which is the information repository, you did not have the basic setups into what groups can access that. So there was no guardrails around the group to what leadership is, the executives. So the managers could access it. So you start there, and then you grow. You just basic steps, and there's a lot of steps into it. So that's why we take little steps. We do that discovery and assessment over that time frame.
From the inception of that assessment to deployment, what is the timeline that it takes for your solution to be fully deployed?
Yeah, it can take a while. It depends on the organization. Like, so just following through on, a proper architecting and so forth from my experience, from deciding what we do, at Solonox, we really, you do a technical discovery. What is the why? What is the business unit? You start there, high level, and then, all right, well, let's take a next call to really do a deep dive into your platform. How do things work? What servers are you talking to? Like, what's the why? What connections are you using? I need to know. I can't assume as a
Mhm.
as a partner, as a consultant. We can't assume. So you start there, and then depending on that time it takes, what we call discovery ops from that side, it could take a month for us to really assess, because we don't know anything. So we have to come in, we have to really understand your environment. How does the security come in play? How does the networking come? Talk to the app team, because the app team may not know what the security team's doing. So we build that together. And so it could take, if you're trying to build out an environment from scratch, and we just need, that's easy. Okay, we need it. What's the goals from it? Our team already has it templatized. We have it. We can run the scripts. We can go through. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more in depth for it, if you're looking to modernize like legacy applications, you're trying to do a rehost, move your on-prem data into the cloud, then now it's going to take a little bit more time, and for us to really assess it, to do what we call dry runs to kind of test it to see if it works through effectively. Was there any hiccups in it? So the timeline could, depending on the solution, it could take. I've had it to where it could take a month, to I've had a discovery take up to 3 months for the case of it, just for us to understand. And that just depends on the level and how complex the organization is.
I want to go back to location. You were talking about servers being in the East Coast, West Coast.
Sure.
Have you done any work in the international space?
We have one in terms of with Europe, and that's where we have to worry about the GDP, like what is GDPR. So Europe has its own set of privacy and data compliance that it is from the US. So we have to kind of keep that together from Microsoft's standpoint. So yes, we had one project on that case.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? I was actually very curious about Europe and its direction when it comes to AI. I know they have very strict policies when it comes to the tech world, right? So, can you talk a little bit more about what you've done there and what kind of challenges, hurdles are you trying to overcome, and also
Sure.
the future in Europe when it comes to AI?
Yeah, we've had it for the case of it. For what we needed to do from their case on was to build out. They had users that were coming in from Europe. It was a bigger organization, and it was housed in the US. But because we were having those, we needed to hold that data where they came through. We need to keep it more multi-regional. You have to get involved with data. Europe's way of controlling data is, it's more power to the individual for that. It has it to where it can be deleted. It's very, you can get fined a lot of money for this case of it. So
Mhm.
there are steps and so forth. That's just like how we do in the U.S. Just with the fundamentals of AI and how you're handling data. Again, you just have to go through and really do a fine magnifying glass to really understand how is that data being handled, how is it being secured. So it just takes that time. It takes that assessment of that. It's not a quick. And I feel like for some architects and some forth else, get into the solution. They solutionize while they're listening to the client. They're thinking when the client's telling them, they think like, oh well, we need to utilize this service and this service, without really listening to them, because that's your point. It's just to listen, understand, ask the basic questions, and have them. They'll bring it out for you, and your job is, as effectively, is to come to your team, make an assessment, bring together if they don't know why, talk to the other team, which is what we had to do on the GDPR for the Europe team. That we had to talk to security, we had to talk to the app team. So there are still fundamentals that you have to do. But in Europe's case, to answer your question of that, I think Europe and how it is progressing, it's more you're realizing um, how vital data is, and as AI continues to go more involved in companies, larger companies are getting more access into our public data, whether it's social media, whether it's our phones, and so forth. So Europe is taking more of a cautious approach as it is to still wanting the individual to have that. Whether the US, of course, it makes sense on the business perspective of the get more data that knows how your users are moving, so you can be able to sell, so you can be able to provide the solutions. So as we go forward in the next couple of years, I think there's going to be a disconnect, in my opinion, of how Europe is going to handle their data, or it's going to be more optional onto how people can opt out versus the U.S. on the West Coast side of America. Does that make sense?
No, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. As AI is evolving, and as you know, it's going to get way more smarter, it's going to do more things. What is your thoughts about the future of AI?
Uh, huh. I think here nowadays it's just like you hear there's two camps. Either it's going to take all the jobs, and or it's going to be negative, or there's the best thing in the world that's going to automate the processes. I think as we move forward, it's going to be a bit of both. I feel like there are going to be some pitfalls and so forth else to showcase it, and there's going to be laws in place because you don't know for that. But I think AI is really it's going to take the I fully believe that it's going to enhance more of the human originality. And what I mean by that is terms of as it sets a standard of where we're using ChatGPT, we're using Claude, any other custom model for this case of it to help do our day to day and the entry level. But for the folks that are very knowledgeable in what they do based off of their experience, it's only gonna that is what's going to be the differentiator between someone that's entry level versus someone that really knows and utilizes AI as that tool to help benefit and help to think, brainstorm of other questions before that. So I think we're going to see that. I think there are going to be a little bit of pitfalls, some stumblings across, but I think even really, man, in the next 2 years, it's going to be pretty impressive because you're already seeing the value add from the case of it. Maybe not as what stakeholders are expecting it because what they're marketing, but as this traverses through, as it gets more refined, we're going to see continuous involvement, and there has to be an adoption for that.
Mhm. For sure. It's spreading like a disease, right? It's going to be all over the world.
Yeah, it
And
is.
as it's spreading, and even just now, what do you think is one of the biggest misconception in your specific industry?
That it can do it all. It can trans through it. We can add this in. It'll take 2 months for the adoption for power user for users to get adopted for us, and that's just not the case of it. I feel like the larger company have done a really good job of marketing it as that, whether it's workflows, what are the um, how does it work, and how does it can be able to solutionize and bring this type of revenue 50%, and that's really not the case of it. There needs to be fundamental building blocks to that. That's a big misconception that we see. Or we got Copilot, and yeah, it helps us with our internal organization, but we thought it was going to be able to connect to our application, and it can be able to run all of our commands. I'm like, no, that's not the case of it, because
Yep.
now you've connected it, but now your data is not secured. Or now we've done a threat assessment test, and someone can be able to prompt inject, or that case of it, what I mentioned to you earlier of a middle manager is able to see what executives are talking about, and able to see documents that they're not authorized to see. So it's again, I think people think of that instant gratification from AI, and immediately it can work, when we still need to follow the fundamentals of building blocks brick by brick by brick to that effect.
Yeah, governance is
Yep.
huge, especially in
Yes.
the industry that you're working on. When
Absolutely.
it comes to let's say your day to day, how do you use AI? What are some practical takeaways that you can give people on how they can
Um,
enhance
for,
their day to
for
day?
the most I mean, I like anyone. I'm gonna using Claude or anything else for our team, for the executive team, utilizing of Claude to help with more so on helping more on brainstorming for the case of thinking of situational use cases. For this case of if we have a client that's coming through, we understand what the client is going. Obviously, we don't put in any client data utilizing only public, but building off of what are some examples if we're trying to build out a deal or we're trying to get through maybe for a partnership, what are ways that we can think of it, and it gives different situations, maybe this, and again it trains your brain to think of other opportunities, so you as the expert know what you can do, but with the use of the AI or as the assistant, we can be able to transverse and use case that. Of course, our engineering teams utilize this kind of Claude code to kind of help utilizing the subtask, the sub agents to kind of help within human loop injection. But I think we're more of taking an approach. It depends on what segment that you're utilizing it for. For us, for deals and so forth, as we give different scenarios for the engineers. Again, it's to help to build out to read through on loggings to check through of these cases of it. So it's really just to help be that calculator, so to speak, to the expert of that.
If you can state a message to your future potential clients, the CTOs, the CIOs,
Sure.
what is a message that you want to tell them so that they can work with you?
Um, yeah, I think that's in terms of for CTOs and for organizations looking to utilize the power of AI or just looking to do that digital transformation effectively. I would just have it to where we start looking at the fundamentals of what you're doing. What's the use case? What's the solution that you're trying to get to? What have you done that has worked? And what's prompting you to want to bring an outside source or some use of help to bring it in, where your internal team doesn't maybe have the skill set or is having a problem with that. So here at Solonox, our engineers, our architects, we're really honing in on being that partner. We really want to not be seen as a vendor. We want to really be seen as a true partner to get to your business goals. Our case of it, we don't let the technology run the business. We have the business. The technology should always fall behind the business and what's the actual solutions. So we come through there and we walk through of that steps to help with that, to get you to that point to where you can transformationally get you to a level playing field that's more competitive to your organizations, to other organizations, and to help you save money on the cost from the FinOps or from your cloud, but also refining it, becoming more efficient, keeping with the standards as it evolves, with the technology and with other, Microsoft, Google, or AWS. Are you following through? How can we continuously uplift you to get to those initiatives that you're looking for? And that's where we
And
update.
how can they find you if they want to
Uh,
come
yeah,
work with
so
you?
we can look through solonox.net. So that's where we have, we go through, you can contact us through, you can put in a calendar depending on what you're looking for. One of our business reps will be able to reach out to you and get that call, or depending on what you're looking for. We also have a podcast, this AI Advantage, where I usually host on that side of it, powered by Solonox. So that's where I talk to, similar to as what you're doing, Giovanni, other CEOs, other just not even just on the CEO side, other entrepreneurs, maybe just on engineers. How are you utilizing AI? And not even that, just what are you doing now? Not just in AI, digital transformation as a whole. What are you doing that's evolving your business in this digital world as we're moving more towards? And so we discuss that on that side as professional and really having that conversation.
Yeah, I'm actually a huge fan of his podcast, so please tune into that. I'm actually hoping
Yeah,
one
thank
day
you.
I get to be featured in
Yeah,
that show
yeah,
as
I'm
well.
looking forward to bring you on, man. Like this is great and so forth. What you've done, even more so of Privian of what you're doing for on the Spotlight. Is just, these, as we're kind of moving through these conversations are really helpful to others that don't, you know.
Sure. No, thank you so much again for tuning in, and thank you all for those who are viewing, for joining this episode. Please tune in as we continue to feature more amazing people like Solomon, and we'll see you all in the next show. Thank you so much, Solomon.
Thank you, Giovanni. Take care.
All right, take care.
Thanks for watching today's episode. If you're interested in how AI can be used in your business or at work, I'd love to help you understand what that really looks like. I made a free tool called the AI Audit Assistant and asks you a few simple questions that shows you exactly where your business is leaking time or money and where automation can help. It's simple, it's fast, and completely free. Just click the link below and enter your name and email, and I'll send your audit agent straight to your inbox. And if you got value from this conversation, subscribing really helps this channel grow. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.